marks, we're going to start off with Pilgrim. So, without any further delays, we'll jump this up. Now, this actually plays up to 6 players locally. So, if you have people over at your house, or you have some friends come over, you can experience it completely as a single player without any issue. But if you have 4 Xbox controllers, or between 1 and 4 Xbox controllers, the keyboard and the mouse, you have what it takes to play this with up to 6 people at your place. So you can totally hang out together and experience this work that we've made with a group, which is kind of how it was intended, but it's still fun to play if you're alone. I'm actually going to play with an Xbox controller that's plugged in over here and the mouse, just so you can see both cursors moving around and stuff. So let me grab that really quick and hook it up. Okay, and even though the game is running, it's smart enough to detect it. So here's the first player cursor that starts up, and then if I move the mouse, immediately drops in second player. If I were to hit the keyboard right now, third player would drop in right away, and so on. So here we have the opening, and let the voice acting begin. The soap bubbles were no longer mountains and valleys of undiscovered terrain, islands of a faraway land. They had started to melt into the sea of bathwater, slowly crumbling apart as minutes passed by and the water had begun to turn lukewarm. The scene must have been what scientists had been observing over the last few decades. The bergs of ice, their bubbles, and the bathwater, our oceans. Janice's foot emerged from the water like a giant creature of the deep and flipped the drain. She toweled off and dressed for the last time. She looked around the shower curtains that she picked out, and then at the orchid that she had been struggling to keep alive. Silly now. The work and stress over a simple flower, all meaningless now that it's time to board. Everything feels helpless and hopeless. Janice, captain of the Pilgrims, takes a deep breath and grabs her official-issued single personal package, which barely holds a change of clothes, let alone anything sentimental. With the bag in hand, she taps a communications disc, disappears from her bathroom, and takes command of the fleet. Biggest Boss says, I can't stick around, but thanks for streaming the game we made. Yeah, Biggest Boss, what's up? Nice to have you here. If you want to go ahead and link Lumiette in chat, you're more than welcome to. That's his main project that he's working on and crunching on like crazy. And it's a shooter, like a bullet hell. It's on itch.io, and it's a pretty sweet game. And Biggest Boss, who's in chat right now, did all of the front end and effects that you see. So the bloom, the background, the cursor, everything that you see that's UI related or like off of the front end is all his talent. Thanks for coming out, man. And we will continue. All right, so this sets the setting. This is like the big stage. This is the opening scene. This is the part in the book when you're at the bookstore and you like read that little italicized beginning at the beginning at the beginning, and you're like, oh, this might be actually interesting. I think I'll hang out and check this out. That's the goal of this. Oh man, Mr. Joshua McClain's already in here. I'm gonna rewatch the video later. I won't read all of his corrections out at the moment. Don't stop working for free. The first way to get paid, Mr. Joshua McClain, as a Twitch live in chat editor, is to not do it for free. All right, let's continue. If you notice, all the stats are rolled too. So I have 71 population, 34 energy, and 24 food and drink. And so, like, let's say somebody just showed up at the house right now at my place, and they're like, hey, TigerJ, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm streaming a game. And they brought an Xbox controller. I have extras here. I could plug that in right now, and they could drop right in, or they could use the keyboard because I haven't set that up. So it's a really cool system that we have to where people can just jump in and party and read through all of the fiction. I'll save it from my stream. Yes. Mr. Joshua McClain is also a streamer. He's going to be streaming Global Game Jam games and has a form that you can use to fill out to get your game added to it if you want. And if you don't mind, Mr. Joshua McClain, if you don't mind, you can link your form in here so that way people can sign up for your stream too. That would be awesome. So that way they can get more, feedback and help. One thing that he'll do is he'll actually help you with your writing. I can't write for... I like to think that I have good ideas that I write, but actually Biggest Boss, who's in chat, did all the front end. He had to go back and like reread all of my stuff. He's like, Like, every 5 seconds, he's like, you forgot a period here. You didn't type this right. That's the wrong word. Wait, one more thing. This is it. Like, the whole time, like, he was just so awesome to help me because I can talk and read things on the screen, but when it comes to writing them, I'm not the best. How do I get my global Game Jam game on the stream? You can use !TigerJ, Super 8-bit Rafa. Use !TigerJ and paste the link. Or just, if you want, you can just paste the link in chat and I'll add it. But you can add it to the queue that way. That should hook it up. And then the form, the Google sheet that just got linked, the Google form, that will totally hook you up to get your game into Mr. Joshua McClain's stream. And that would be awesome. All right, we're going to continue. So she boards the ship, right? She's looking around the house. She's like, all right, this is it. It's time to go. And away we go. All right, and the first story that comes up is called Weeping for Water. Weeks have passed without issue. Everything has been splendid, despite eating the same food and talking with the same people over and over. Due to lack of anything interesting happening, the commander ordered the engineering team to perform some routine maintenance on the bridge, terminal system, and sensors. Once O'Malley, head of engineering, finished his team's work, he powered all the systems back on. The panels instantly turn red and flashed with warnings. The commander looks at the diagnostic screen and yells out, "Water! We are an hour from being out of water!" She hastily calls for a meeting with the advisors in the ready room. And so this is the first spot where players are, ready to interact. The stories are all randomly sequenced, but you do play through all of the content if you get to a victory and make it to the end. So you will experience all the stories on that journey. In the current jam version of the game, that might change as we add more content in, but to begin with, you get to play through all of them, and they are randomly sequenced, but you don't play the same story twice. All right, so now we have these 4 options down here. I'm using the Xbox controller one hand and the mouse in the other to move the cursors around, and we can vote. And there's a back-end code that Biggest Boss wrote that will let us does tiebreaker logic on it. So if 2 people pick different things, it will do a tiebreaker to figure out what we want. So our options are explore a nearby system for water, harvest the elderly for their moisture, double-check the work that the engineering team did for air, or drastically ration all water usage and harshly punish the violators. And because we could talk in chat if you guys wanted to mention what you think, but I think mostly the elderly need to get harvested. So we're going to go with that, and we're going to harvest the elderly to see what happens. So we're going to do both votes on that option here. Oh, and the rumble effect's really nice. That's the first time I've experienced it. Luckily, the science team harvesting the old folks has also found a way to squeeze a little juice out of them, energy-wise, too. What luck! So we lose 4 population, but we gain 5 energy and 5 food, which is wonderful. Like, food, water is kind of the same resource. King Doty says, harvest the elderly. What does that mean? It means Soylent Green, my friend. So a funny story about this, that when we first implemented, this was the first story, and I didn't code in all of the conditionals of how resources would change, and I forgot to put population in. And as we were debugging and working on the game, we kept seeing that it was 0 population was affected. We keep wondering, like, well, what's going on? We keep harvesting the elderly, but nothing's happening. We just get food, but nobody dies. And it's because I screwed up when I was writing the method for this and how it interacts. And then, brilliantly, though, our artist, Tori, who's phenomenally talented, and she drew all the ships that you see, and all the other kind of artwork that's in here is all her. And she was just cranking stuff out. I'll talk more about her in a moment in her artwork. But she noticed it, and she's like, no, you're just harvesting parts of them. And so it's like, oh, it's brilliant. I kind of want to, at least we have a go-to explanation to defend the comments when everybody says that. And then when we played the game in front of the entire jam site at the end, they picked up on it right away. And there's so much value when you're debugging and you think you noticed something, but you're worried, you're like, oh, I noticed something, but maybe it's not that big of a deal. If you noticed it, other people will notice it. It's guaranteed. And this is complete proof of it. Like, we totally botched that population variable. We fixed it now. But when we were testing it, we totally caught it. We saw it right away. I didn't write it down. I didn't put it on a list of things to fix, and we screwed up. When we demoed the game to the jam site, the first thing they noticed when we picked this one was how that was messed up. And it's so interesting how, like, when you notice a bug and you're doing a jam, like, really try to just make sure to at least write it down or be mindful. Don't forget about it. Because if you noticed it or if something went wrong, everybody else is going to notice it right away. So no matter what you're working on, make that the priority before you go forward. It's totally, absolutely critical to learn from that lesson. And I already kind of knew that in my head, but, like, we totally were, you might know how to do the right thing, but you might not always do the right thing, right? Testers are the besters. Yes, absolutely. So once we click, the story will end, and then we get into an intermission. And so through random rolling and based on the ships that we have 8 new pilgrims that are born during the voyage. The fleet, we sent out 1 scout ship, and that scout ship recovered 4 energy cells and 15 edible material, right? So our food goes up by 15, the energy goes up by 4, and the pilgrims, our pilgrims go up by 18, our population. If any of those values go to 0 during the session, we get one of the 2 endings. And if we keep all of those values steady throughout the story and through the narrative, then we win the game. Now, none of the options reveal to us what we're gonna lose, but we can infer that, like, kind of what we're risking. So by choosing Harvest the Elderly, we kind of understand that we're going to solve the food crisis, and we're probably going to sacrifice some lives. Almost, not all of them, but almost all of the choices kind of have that hint in their statement, and that's part of the theme of the game. All right, we're moving forward. And then you'll notice that the group of ships that randomly showed up also got destroyed, and that had absolutely nothing to do with harvesting the elderly. And that has to do with, we have artwork for each story that Tori drew, but due to crunch, we have just the single animation. So every story that you see is going to have the ships blowing up. But when the game gets put onto itch.io, when we have a little bit of time to work on it and get it stitched together with the stories, there'll actually be unique animations for each one of the stories that are in the game. So we continue forward. All right, intermission continued. So this is the second phase. We pay an upkeep for all of our ships. And since we have 1 ship in the fleet, we have to pay 5 energy and 5 food. And we continue forward. The refrigerator. This is the next story, right? Jackie drew the short straw again on refrigerator clean-out duty. Nobody should have to do this 2 weeks in a row, she thought to herself as she dragged a trash can across the room and began throwing stuff away. She opened the door and began shuffling through paper sacks, tossing unnamed items in the trash. No name, no date, no save. As she worked towards the back of the shelf, a smell filled the air. I'm going to puke, she thought as she backed away from the fridge, holding in whatever air she could. Outside the mess hall, she took a massive breath of air and ran back in, counting in her head. 1, 2, 3. She made her way to the door, popped it open, grabbed the sack, and ran to the nearest airlock. She could feel in her stomach that she was running out of air. Just a little further and she could space this bag of death. Good grief! What could someone have put in this thing? She thought, looking down at the wet, leaky brown bag. Jackie punched in her code and opened the door to the airlock. She tossed the bag in and let out a sigh of relief, and then took a deep breath. The air was still rancid with smell. She looked down, and a tentacle had wrapped around her left hand, traveling upward towards her arm. The bag rustled, and slowly a mucus-covered membrane with a beak and 7 eyeballs scurried up her arm. The wet, stinky, slimy creature wrapped its arms around her face. Its beak pushed her pressed lips apart. Something wet and prickly forced its way down her throat and began to fill her lungs with its breath. Davis turned the corner to check and see why the airlock alarm had been tripped. As he stared down the hallway, the creature looked at him with several of its eyes. One of them winked at him slowly. And Jackie's body began to stand up, as though being controlled by a puppeteer's strings. Davis ran back out of the mess hall corridor and locked each door behind him. When he was running, he opened a channel to the bridge and explained what he saw in broken sentences and scattered words. And now we can tell Davis to handle it, send a science team down, send a security team down, or have a science team attempt to communicate with the creature. And I think what we'll do is we will send the science team down. All right. The science team recognizes right away that this is one of their cultures for a new type of meat. The They pry the creature off of Jackie and place it in containment. They are delighted to report that seven-eyed squids are going to keep the bellies of the crew full for quite some time. All right. King Pringle says, "Are you a voice actor?" No, unfortunately, well, I am when I want to be. I'm a voice actor on Twitch 3 days a week. Bring your games. Write lots of things for me to read. That'll be great. Oh, he should be. That is absolutely lovely. Thank you, Josh McClain. All right, zombie attack. Yes, so this was heavily inspired by Alien, but we gained 14 food, right? Now, I get to cheat. I wrote all the stories, and I've played the game 4 times today, so I definitely know what to pick in order to be able to survive here. The game should totes have Twitch. Oh, yes. Well, we'll add it to Trello. I have an asset that could totally do this. We could make Twitch voting on this for sure. Yes. All right. It's a stretch goal. I'll see no promises, but I totally have an asset that could do that really easily. Sunless Sea, but with voting. All right. I'm not familiar with Sunless Sea, but I don't get out much. I stay in my own Twitch channel. I don't leave that often. When I do, I just go over to Mr. Joshua's and your brother and all the other great peeps. I've been seen in other channels once in a while, but not often. So this was heavily inspired by the movie Alien, and there's also some callbacks to one of the characters in the story later on. And also is inspired by, there's Something in the Fridge, which is a Weird Al song, or Living in the Fridge, and it's about a creature that's alive inside of a refrigerator. And it's also a little humorous if you work in an office environment because of the refrigerator clean-out stuff. So that's a little bit behind the scenes, like backstory about what this was, where it was tying into, like culturally, and trying to appeal to people that play the game. All right, continuing. Intermission. Yes, 16 new pilgrims were born. Now, this is very important. Once we get more than 100 people, we get a new ship, and there's 5 ships in the game. The best I've been able to beat the game at so far today was with 4 ships, and I wasn't able to do it each time. So there's lots of RNG with getting a victory here, but that's what we're going for. So we were able to send out 2 scout ships, and they returned with 4 energy cells and 30 edible material. So our food is going up too, which is pretty sweet. All right, and here's our second ship. Boom. Excellent. And again, our artist Tori is absolutely phenomenal. Each ship is just, I'm so, for a 48-hour jam, and we really probably only got to put in about between 20 and 30 hours into it with sleep and people going off-site and on-site. She was able to just really bust out so much art, even so much that we couldn't finish it and get it all in the game. So I just can't praise her enough for that. All right, and we continue on with our upkeep. This is the Valeni. All right. The fleet receives communication on the main screen. A figure dressed in a luxurious golden dress appears in an immaculate chamber. A wondrous rug, which really ties the room together, lays underneath an ornate table, hand-carved from wood with claw feet and ornate detailing of leaves and foliage up the pedestal. The top of the table is composed of solid marble, and upon it sits a tea set of solid gold. The figure on the screen begins to talk. "Good day, travelers. We are the Valeni, glorious and prosperous people of Sector 14845. I am Queen Albrigantique." Excellent. Thank you for the submission, James G. Marks. "Queen Ablantique, holder of the sacred bells of Pliff, sacred leader of the Budatar. I bid thee welcome and invite thee to dine in our master hall. Please use the following coordinates and dock with our master station. We are very interested in your journey and eager to hear tales of your exploits. We will begin the feast as soon as you arrive." Captain Janus thanks the Queen, and the screen fades to black. The fleet sets coordinates to the Central Space Station. The station is a massive structure the size of a medium city. Tall, elaborate buildings stretch unbelievably high, cutting above clouds. The massive complex appears to have a dedicated weather system. The crew has never seen anything like this creation. A meal like no other is served to the crew. Each item is delicious and cooked to perfection. Otherworldly cuisine glazed in exotic spices and seasonings, which the crew members' mouths have never experienced. "Memories of this meal will be told of ages as we finally arrive," says Captain Janus to the rest of the crew as they finish up the dinner. "Oh, my dears," says Queen Ablantique, "you can check out any time you like, but you can never leave." "What?" exclaims Janice. "Look around you, dear. We are the master slaves of Sector 14845, the Queen explained. "I figured you knew you were conceding to us as property. This meal is the last meal for slaves. It appears we have a misunderstanding." All right, and so now we've been deceived. We thought that we were being invited for a fancy dinner, and with a nice Hotel California reference from the Eagles, we find out that we are actually not going to be able to do that they want to keep us as slaves. All right, so we can make a run for it, play into their hands as slaves, devise a plan to flee, bluff about a cloaked weapons ship, and negotiate freedom. This is a very, very Star Trek solution. Or we can fight them. This is very, very a not Star Trek solution. We're going to go to fight them so we can complete the Eagles reference, and so we will do that. The crew stabs the Valonais with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast, and a lot of them die. And there's a typo there that needs to get fixed. Junie Master says, "I really like the writing." Well, thank you so much. That's my main contribution. That and the system of the dialogue and choices. So thank you. What's going to happen if both advisors pick different choices? That is really good that you asked that. There is Biggest Boss, who's in chat or was in chat earlier, who helped write the front end code. He wrote a tie-breaking system. So it will, if two people pick two different things, it'll do a coin flip and figure out which one is going to win. So there's a system in place to deal with tiebreakers. And one of the things that we're going to add in is so people can see which, like right now, if there was a tie, we wouldn't know which choice won in this sense because we're not showing to the user what solution actually was chosen. So that's something we have to add in also. We noticed as we started to test the tie-breaking stuff that when you get to this screen, you're like, unless you're with TigerJ, I'm the only one that can tell you which choice won because I did all the writing and I know how they all tie back to each other. Let me go back and chat and read chat a little bit too. I'm going to expect a reaction from him later on. I really like the writing. Okay, cool. I think we're all caught up. James G. Marks, thank you so much for your submission. As soon as I'm done with this, we'll go through and we'll kick it off with Shadow Knight and go through the list, like first come, first serve. If for some reason you have to go, I'll definitely post a video on your game once it's streamed later on when I get through with post-production, probably over the weekend. All right, and we continue. We lose a population, but I don't think we're going to lose a ship because we're still at 100. All right, energy cells, edible material. I think we're good to go. Oh, we did. So you have to have more than 100 dudes. Does this work with exclamation point game effects? It probably does. The sound effect for the game, if you lead with it, just type in game effects and you could probably play the reboot like noise right over it. I bet you can. Oh, you know what? I'm pretty sure that no, it only goes if Nightbot does it. It's limited to only the Nightbot user. That's what it is. Because Nightbot's a moderator, so it's a moderator only command. That's how I did it. So that way nobody could come in and spam the sound effect if I'm streaming and stuff. I forgot. I thought of that and then I did it and I forgot how I did it. All right, so our upkeep goes down, which is pretty good. Yes. So this story is called On the Rocks. Verp, verp, verp. The alarm sounding and flashing lights awake everyone. Captain Janice jumps out of bed, tosses on her uniform, and races out of her quarters. She is met with the advisory team as everyone approaches the bridge. Their jaws begin to drop. On the main screen is a giant chunk of ice. It is enormous and is lethally moving towards the ship. And our choices here are: far across the distance and spaces between us, you have come to show you go on. Love can touch us one time and last for a lifetime and never let go till we're gone. Near, far, wherever you are, I believe that the heart does go on. You're here, there's nothing I fear, and I know my heart will go on. All right, so out of our 4 Celine Dion choices, we're going to go with the one about there's nothing to fear, I think, is what we'll go with. These are all from Titanic. Yes, they are. They are all from Titanic, correct. because this is a giant chunk of ice. We actually have artwork for a giant space ice comet that we didn't get in. So like I said, it's always the ships. This would actually be a giant ball of ice in the screen right now. It's about and a movie. Yes. Not often. Only when I write lyrics as jokes to answers into a game. Somebody please get the Titanic reference, right? I know, right, King? All right, here we go. All right. The fleet rams through the chunk of ice. It was a good day. Check yourself. Ice Cubes. And that is a reference to the rapper Ice Cube. Those are two of his hit songs. So if you're not old, you don't get that. But hopefully somebody will. And then, of course, the Titanic references in this story as well. And also, in the Valinay story, in the opening paragraph, the rug that really tied the room together was a Lebowski reference. So there's a cult, like, cultural Lebowski reference in the opening paragraph. When it's describing the queen and the tea set, the rug really ties the room together. That's a run-on joke with the Big Lebowski. All right. I forgot to mention that in the last one. All right, intermission. We're going to get our ship back again. Boom. Don't wreck yourself. Major Pest with the hype. All right, our ship has continued. Now we're back to the 10 upkeep of energy and food. Sir, this is Plith Pirates is the name of this. Sir, scanners are picking up a fleet of ships approaching directly to our heading, the ensign operating the comm station declares. Hail them. Maybe we have found some friends, spoke Captain Janice with hope in her breath. No response, sir. Our scans indicate the ships appear to be heavily armed, the ensign says. Captain, the ships bear the markings of the signature Dargon Plish, a famed space pirate from Pomicron OCI 7.9. Inform the senior science officer from the bridge. Advisors, meet me in the war room. I'd like to hear all our options, said Captain Janice with reassuring confidence. Reassounding confidence. I can't read my own writing now. And so our options here are prepare weapons and brace for combat, attempt to ask the pirates to join, change course and attempt to maneuver around the pirates, or tell the pirates to join or die. And Pomicron OCI 7.9 is a reference to Omicron Persei 8, which is a Futurama place from the single female lawyer episode, the human horn, right? All right, as we continue on, you should become a voice actor. Vote, join, or die. We will vote, join, or die from the chat. So much. Yo. Ho, yo, ho, a sailor's life for me. Or pirate's life, right? Oh, man. Drazray, welcome to the party, my friend. I'm playing through my Global Game Jam game, and then we're going to jump into the queue and start playing Global Game Jam and Mini Jam 20 stuff right afterwards. What is up? So lovely to have you here. I really like the work that you've been doing and posting in Discord and the show off your stuff with Kent and the updated models. I'm super stoked about playing an update to your game, dude. Every now and then, Nightbot should toss a link to Discord, and if you're watching on a computer, there's a Discord link down below, too, on the channel. A lot of the regulars, most of the people with the VIP badge, and a lot of the people who don't have that, for some reason maybe, hang out in our community. Well, I stream game jams and game dev mainly, that's all I do. So if you want to check out stuff and see things get working and hang out, then you're more than welcome to always, be a part of that. And I'll also hype other jams like Mini Jam, Weekly Jam, and a few others. So I hold 4 jams a year too, and I give away lots of stuff, so it's worth checking out. All right, joining or dying. Onward we go. Shots are fired back and forth. Each volley rocks the fleet. The crew watches each return volley, hoping it'll be the last, and the pirates will either flee or meet their end. And this is the only story and response that actually matches the animation. So fantastically, we have picked the right thing, even using the chat here with their suggestion. We got the stuff. We got the stuff. Yeah, OWO did win. I don't know if that's Owa. I know it's like a face. I get that. But I don't know how to actually say it. It's a mystery. It did win the limitation. It only took 20 jams. Yes. And if you're not from Minijam, I'll recap that here in a moment when we get to playing. We lost our ship again. This is the most turbulent game I've played yet. I've never had a session where I've lost it and we didn't lose it because we know how to breed. 60 pilgrims were born. We are like rabbits after that pirate fight. That set the mood. Like fighting all those pirates was like, dang, I don't know. This is a dicey adventure. I think some people found some romance, decided to settle down and have some families after that. All right. Luckily, so we get to keep our ship. We were going to lose a ship though if we didn't breed enough. This, oh my goodness! And now, Below the Stone Dev is here. Whoa! And it's a raid. All right, I'm gonna take a sip now. What is up? Welcome, fellow dev. Below the Stone Dev is making a really awesome top-down kind of action RPG, I would say. Definitely worth following. Fellow Unity developer, thank you so much for bringing your crew out here. Wonderful to have y'all. We're playing... What is a raid? A raid is when another Twitch streamer kindly takes his entire chat and dumps it on another Twitch streamer, which is a lot of hard work, because most of the time when streamers are done, they want to like go to the bathroom and go to sleep, usually, or eat food. Typically, that's when I stop streaming. So Below the Stone Dev, though, decided to come on by and hang out. Action RPG game. Yes, totally. Fellow streamer, though. Definitely check out their work. They're super cool. Right now, thanks for joining us. I hope you had a great stream. Hope it was productive. You guys are probably working hard on your game, busting out code, squashing bugs, and adding in features and more bugs, probably, is how it goes. We're streaming Mini Jam 20 and Global Game Jam entries right now, and kicking it off with my Jam entry here, which is a series of short stories. We're almost through it. We're almost at the end. We're trying to find our home, which is the theme for Global Game Jam this year's home. And so we're this nomadic, the peoples that have left Earth in search of a better planet and a less polluted life. The name of this story is called The Man Who Sold the World, which is a David Bowie reference. Davis had been one of the top-scoring cadets on his exams before the final project was completed. Years of preparation and study had paid off, and command rewarded him with a high position among the Pilgrim fleet. Laying awake, he reflected on his time at the academy. He remembered the ridicule and taunts from others when he wouldn't party and instead would hold himself up in his quarters cramming for the exams and trials. All that work paid off now as he was guaranteed 100 acres at the colony for his new home. What will I do with all this land, he thought. Farm, grow a forest, explore, make trails? I don't know. I know I don't want to mow it, that's for sure. A notification sounded on his wrist. Crap, he thought. One thing that isn't great about this position is I have to respond first to any abnormality alerts whenever a system fails. The alert was a refrigeration unit warning. A few tons of food was going to spoil if he didn't get it fixed. These alerts were usually just a sensor going bad and not nearly as bad as they seemed when the notifications came in. Davis traveled down through all the decks to the lower sector of the ship. After this first dozen half-decks, you see fewer people, he thought. I wonder why. They put everybody on the top section, didn't spread us out. Seems like strategically it would have been better to diversify the life on board in the event that there was an issue. As he finally approached the bottommost deck of the ship, he noticed two guards were laying down by a refrigeration door which was left open. The panel to the side had been ripped from the wall. As Davis looked closer at the guards, he realized that they were covered in blood. Something is very wrong. Davis tapped his wristcom to call for help, but no signal could connect to the central ship system. He took a few steps towards the refrigeration unit, and he realized that there was no food inside. Inside the food containers and water rations, the unit was full of bodies. Each row was named after a top-ranked officer. There was a row titled Davis. Davis peered into the row of the beds with his name on them. As he leaned over, he was staring at himself. The other Davis opened his eyes, staring back at him, reached both hands up, and grabbed for his head. Davis backed away as more bodies started to wake and climb clumsily out of their beds. This was not a food chamber. Those were all clones of top-grade crew members. Now, worried that he would end up as the guards that lay before him, he ran out of the chamber and down the hallway to what should have been a food science laboratory. Rushing inside and locking the doors behind him, he looked around the lab, but instead of biochambers and peat moss seed cultures, there were odd machines set up that looked like they were made to augment bodies. The clones started banging on the door in a way that reminded Davis of classic zombie horror movies. Looking down at a manual, one of the tables, he noticed that his name was on top. Inside the booklet were all his memories written out with codes that must have been used to punch in the machine nearby. They wrote all my memories into me, he thought. I'm not me. I'm one of them. How long have we been on this journey? He asked himself as he looked up at the other Davis in the window pounding on the door. Davis reached over the table to the comm panel and contacted the bridge. All right, so now we'll catch up on chat. We'll read. We can dispatch more personnel to the deck to rescue Davis and fight the clones. We can explain to Davis that all senior crew members are fully aware of the clones. We can vent the basement of oxygen. Sorry, Davis. Davisi. Or we can get a team of scientists to collect, wipe, and put the clones back to bed. Alrighty. Battlestar Galactica. You went from killing bugs to raiding. Wait, no, Cylons. This 2-player game jam game. Wow. Tech stacked. It's actually 6. You can do 6 players with it. So I'm using the mouse and an Xbox controller, but you can use a keyboard, mouse, and up to 4 controllers, which gives you a total of 6 players if you wanted to have a group of people voting on the responses that come in as we journey forward. So it's kind of like. It's kind of an interactive fiction, choose your own adventure, but also like a party version of that where you could hang out and do like couch co-op with people too, is the idea. Let's see here. Yes, get out of there, right? Run, Davis, run. Absolutely, scientists to the rescue. I like that. Clones back to bed. I think that's what we're going with. I see a little bit of clones back to bed and scientists to the rescue, so we'll go and vote there with that. All right. The senior scientists gather and restore the clones to sleep state. The science team will not tell anyone how many years this journey has been underway or how many generations of clones have been used in the process. So we don't know. I mean, it could have been thousands of years now in this part of the story. Some interesting things about this story is that in the story with the refrigerator, if you've been watching earlier on when we were doing the refrigerator story, there was an option to tell Davis to just deal with it. And if you choose that option, Davis grabs the alien-infested girl, and he takes her, and he jumps into an airlock, and he sacrifices himself, out, and he spaces them both to get rid of the alien, instead of getting the squids that we chose from the science team. And at the end of that dialogue, the captain says, "Can somebody go get me another Davis?" So it's like a tie-in to this. So if you choose that one option, you'll get some tie back into this story. Or if you play this story first, you could almost tell Davis, you would have knowledge that there's more than one Davis, and you might choose to have him just deal with the problem then if you end up getting this story before the refrigerator. So it works. It works bidirectionally, like either way, but it's just a little thing that we wrote in. This story was heavily inspired by the movie Moon as well, so this specific short story. And also it's inspired by the David Bowie song, The Man Who Sold the World, which was also covered by Nirvana. But it's a nice song with a really good guitar riff, but also the lyrics are extremely interesting. It's about a man who's a time traveler, and he ends up meeting himself, right, in a sense. So paradox type stuff, lots of fun. All right, and we shall continue. 120 new Pilgrims were born. Wow, I'll tell you what, after finding out there's clones, we really got to breeding, folks. We sent out some ships to scout. We're almost to get a third ship, I think. Yeah, there it is. Here comes our third ship right here. Boom. And now our upkeep goes up, so we're paying 15 apiece. Baby boom ensues. Absolutely. When you realize there's clones, right? And now we're at the final end here. So this is, what does home mean to you? For the Pilgrims, it meant any place that was habitable, a characteristic that did not currently describe their original homeworld, which was rendered unlivable. Far out in the distance, they could see a verdant sphere of untamed life, seemed to promise a second beginning for the weary nomads. Ending this particular chapter of their lives. Welcome home. And Ben Nguyen, he did the front end and the UI design. Of course, me, TigerJ, Jimmy Briggs, I did the coding, the back end, and the story, so all the stories and stuff. Except for this final spot, we were in a crunch, and I had to fix some bugs with the text. So while I was doing that, Ben wrote up these paragraphs here. So like we collaborated and were able to cover each other so good in this jam. It was really, really well executed. And then of course the phenomenal Tori Butcher did all of our art, and she drew more art than we had time to stitch in. So when we put this out on itch.io, it's on the Global Game Jam site now as our submission. But when we get to update it in about a week or so, we'll have the itch.io page ready, and we'll be able to get the rest of her art in and also do a little bit more like UI work and kind of bring things up a little bit. So that's the goal. Thanks so much for watching my game. I'm so excited to stream all your games now too, and we'll get jumping in and start with that too. Yeah, local multiplayer, but it's still nice. Yeah, tech stack. We could do... I have the netcode stuff to do like a online one, but it would be hard to talk about your decisions. Really, it's built for a local. Like, you want to have conversations, and I think when we add more stories in, there's originally 13 or 14 stories. I ended up writing 6 or 7. I had to keep cutting them out because of time. Like, again, 48-hour jam. I started to get carried away, especially with the story about Davis and the clones, the Valeni with the high society of slavers. The more that I came up with stories, the longer they kept getting, which turned into be sort of a problem because I started to like get a little bit too like into the stories themselves, and I'm like, man, I have to keep writing more, and it was super crunchy. James G. Mark says it must have been challenging to design all those stories in such a short time. It was, but at the same time, I'm a big fan of science fiction and movies and stories in general, so it was really easy for me to just take a little bit of inspiration and heavily rip off other things. Was it all just branching, or could they fold back to previous points like in Choose Your Own Adventure? So if you lose, you go through a wormhole and repeat the game, and there's a story. There's the losing ending, which is hard to do or the way that it's written right now, but when we code it up for itch, we'll probably bounce it out, so there's more of a risk to lose. You can actually go back through, and you'll end up starting to play over again. But I think our idea will be at that point to have more stories than fits into nodes of the game, so you'll still get new content in the middle of other content too. Yes, take a bit of inspiration and heavily rip off a few things. Absolutely. Yes. Then, and also try to tie in lots of references too to cover up my ripping off, right? So, like The Man Who Sold the World, right? And the movie Moon, and the Futurama references, and all the little like pop culture hints, and seasoning the soup, the stew, if you will, with my own flavors there. Steal like an artist, right? I mean, we're always inspired, and that's how we end up with new stuff. But like a race like the Valeni, that was a pretty original story with the slavers who were really like high elves. Like they were really inspired probably by the high elf races of Tolkien, like fantasy, J.R.R. But then also, like, what if you went to a really elegant, super awesome, like, really high society with a dark secret? And if I had more time to write more background, I could write a bunch of lore about that entire sector. And another little, so the theme for Global Game Jam was home. And in that story about the Valeni and Sector 14845, that's the zip code for my hometown too. So a little personal tie into the theme for me was to be able to write in my own hometown's zip code into one of the stories too, just to like, I don't know, it's a little bit more personal. When I get to read that story, I get like a little smile in the back of my head, like, oh yeah, good old Horseheads, right? From my hillbilly days, yeah, back when I was a hillbilly. All right, we're going to continue on here. So this is our game page here. This is the games list, the queue. Currently, we have 6 games in queue right now. We're doing a mix of Global Game Jam and Mini Jam